This one here, it's just a brief presentation, try to familiarize people that this thing exists more than anything else, because it's a really powerful little piece of equipment here.
What is it?
It's called AvXCat now. It's actually had 3 different names since its inception. When they first thought of it, it was out on OS2 World. They came up with this idea for writing this little program. And I don't remember who all was originally part of it, but one of them was Remy Doden, who's actually doing the AvXCat now. And what they came up with originally was called CE MP3 or something like that. I can't remember exactly. I never had a whole lot of success with it. I don't remember if it was a GUI at that point or what, but basically they were wanting to be able to work with some multimedia, and I think in particular at the time MP3 type audio stuff in particular. Like I said, I don't know a whole lot about that one. I tried it a little bit and didn't have a whole lot of success with it, so I don't really know much about it. But then it kind of waned for a while, and then Remy Doden picked it back up and put the GUI, as we're seeing more or less here, has changed a little bit since, because it's adapted and stuff. But he came up with the GUI, and we called it originally FFmpeg-CA, I think it was. Anyway, basically that name came from the fact that he was using FFmpeg to do all the conversions. Then the reason for the name AvXCat is that it now handles more than just FFmpeg. It's got VoIX in there, it's got MP3 gain, and just a whole slew of other things. And if you have something that you want to have him add, let him know, and he'll likely add it. You may have to do some, if it doesn't work outright, you may have to do like I did with the VoIX and go in and adapt it for him, but he's more than willing to go in there and add the things if you've got something that's good there. You can't really see it because it kind of mushes up there, but the AvXCat stands for is just extended conversion and authoring tool. Is what it basically comes down to. Initially, like I said, we called it the FFmpeg because that's what it was just for using it. It now can use, it also will use either MPlayer or KMP for being able to look at stuff, and being able to do some of the video stuff. So it's got a much wider audience or formats that it can handle and things it can do. So that's sort of why the name change.
Does it replace anything that we had before, like a commercial app?
It really doesn't replace anything that I can think of. One possibility is to some extent, what ships with OS2 has got like a little wave editor. It can do some of the things. Now the difference is the wave editor will do it in kind of a give you kind of a graphical showing of the. And actually, I say wave editor actually will work with MP3s as well. But as you see it, it'll have the sign of the audio, where you don't see the stuff here, but you can do the same type of things. Like at one point, I was trying to take a bit of audio and then cut a piece of it and copy and paste and put it in other areas and stuff. And I was doing it through copy and paste and trying to base it off of where the things were at. Whereas with this, what I do is I go to a point where I can hear it, take the time, and then I can, from the time, say, okay, cut it here, let it do all that stuff for me. And one of the things he added to my request was join, so then I can then join the pieces. So
okay, so it's really sort of like a main actor without a GUI.
Could be. I haven't really seen main actor.
Well, main actor was going to be our multimedia authoring tool.
Yeah, I've seen it, but I never could do anything with it. So.
Basically, you could do all the fades and all that, put the special effects in there, clips, and whatever, and then out would come your final MPEG.
Okay, yeah. This is, in that regard, it probably doesn't do some of the fades and such. It does whatever the back-end tools will handle. This is just a front end for whatever back ends
Right.
exist. It uses FFmpeg for the bulk of things. Uses MP3 gain for being able to normalize, basically I think just the MP3s, but it'll normalize the sound. It can convert to anything, basically it can convert anything to anything else. Basically, if FFmpeg can handle it. So you can go from MP3 to AAC, WAVE, even go MIDI files and convert them to something else. So now that we don't really have MIDI for the most part, you can take those MIDI files, if you get them now, and convert them to something else so that you can use them if there's, some of the things, aren't useful, but I found MIDI files where I want to download them and then so I can listen to them, I convert them, and I've got them set up. It gives some basic standards that you can switch to. MP3, convert to MP3, OGG, WAVE, WMA, MP4, AC3, FLAC, and you can user define. Through user define, you can come down here and choose the types, the bit rates, the channels. You can just set whatever you want to. Now, what I have found is that certain things, at least with MP3s, through this I found that you can choose anything you want to choose. Some things just don't make sense. Because I was originally playing with sample rates and bit rates and trying to take some MP3s I had that didn't need the high fidelity on them. I just wanted to get them smaller. They recorded them at high fidelity. They were taking 20 megs, and I redo them, I get them down to 10. And 10 megs isn't a lot until you start talking about several hundreds of them, and then all of a sudden, you're using up a lot of extra space. I've got like 8 gig of those, which I would have had 16 gig, and would have overflowed my MP3 player. So that's where I really started using this, is because one of the advantages, you can do one file at a time, with, or 2 or 3 files or whatever through add file, and you can select WAV files, MIDI files, whatever it is, and you can do it one at a time or 3 or 4 here at a time, or you can add the directory. So I can just double click on it there, and I can add the entire directory. And then everything that's in that directory will get operated upon.
And is this something that you would use to write to an MP3 player?
Not write to it. If all you want to do is take an MP3 file, depending, of course, on your MP3 player, I just plug mine in to the USB. It sees it as a drive. I just copy the file over. You could potentially, because it's got the target folder, if you were converting them, you could copy them directly to the MP3 player, if that's what you want to do. That is plausible. I don't do that because this thing usually takes some time for it to go through, do its calculations and conversions. And I just don't trust having the MP3 player plugged into the USB that long. So and especially since it's going to add a little bit of time because it's slower to push it across, I drop it to another folder. Once it's done, I then copy it all across. It takes less time, less likely for the cord to get yanked out, or for the thing to decide, okay, I'm going to stop talking to the device now, and less, just less issues.
You don't have trouble when I've tried to write stuff to my MP3 player then said, you don't have anything on here.
I don't have any problems with the ones I've got. Now, I've got 2. One of them I can't use under OS2 because it uses large floppy FAT32 with 2056 bit BPS. Between the two, I can't. There's nothing I can get the thing to do. If it was FAT16 with 2056, I could get the thing to work. If it's just FAT32 without the large floppy, I can get it to work with the two. And If it's FAT16 with a large floppy, I can, even with the 2056, I can still handle it. It's the whole combination. I worked a long time on that. Couldn't get the thing to get them to mesh. I got it to FAT16. I got the MP3 player to actually boot in still, but then it didn't see anything was on it at that point. So that one there, I ended up having to write anything I wanted to write to it with Windows. Now, I went through and rewrote that thing, I don't know how many times on the OS2 side, and then reflashed the firmware on it to get it running again. And I could access it, and I could write files to it and use it as a jump drive, but not still use it as an MP3 player. It was only a 2 gig player, and I could add another 2 gig card to it, but that wasn't enough. Like I said, I've got 8 gig of stuff now, so I went and bought, it's supposed to be 16 gig, it's actually 11. But that one there, I plugged it in, and it too was a large floppy. But once I partitioned it, it was fine. It didn't put its firmware on its data area. So I just partitioned it, threw the FAT32 back on it, and it was fine. So that's going to be entirely dependent upon your player there.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand that. You put the FAT32 back on it, but
Well, what it is, because I partitioned it, it was no longer formatted.
oh, okay, but you formatted it first and then you put.
Well, yeah, well, what happened is, I've got two, okay, I'll try to distinguish this a little bit. The original machine, the original one I had was FAT32, but it's large fly. But it put its data and its
separate.
It put its data and its actual software into on the same area. So when I wiped it, it wipes off the software too. Now I had taken that into account. I backed all that stuff up, copied it back over, but it still couldn't read it and actually boot back up. So the firmware puts it all back on, wipes the whole device out, but it puts it all back on. So I was able to do that over and over and over, try many different things, ultimately deciding, okay, it's just not going to work right with the OS2.
Was that a Kobe?
No, it was an RCA.
Because Kobe did the same thing for me.
Yeah, it was an RCA. This other one I got is some Chinese cheap, iPod knockoff. It put its data and its system files separate. So then when I wiped the partition, it was large floppies. When I partitioned it, created a partition, I then had to format it to FAT32. It was large floppy FAT32. I had to partition it so then it had no file system, so then I formatted FAT32.
But it was no longer a large floppy.
But it was no longer large floppy. So now OS2 is happy with it. It's still, the thing itself is still happy with it.
Okay.
Everything, so it all works. So that's why I said it really depends on your hardware. The Kobe apparently is a little bad one.
It's cheap.
Yeah.
That's why.
So,
So is this one.
so the issue is large floppy. So,
Yeah, in that case, in both those cases is large floppy. Large floppy on OS2, now we got some discussions going on with someone. But under OS2, large floppy can only be FAT16.
and limited to.
And which limits you to 2 gig, because FAT16 can only handle up to 2 gig.
Now, but is it the type of situation where somebody wrote an additional or replacement large floppy that it would work right?
It can be
It's
done.
going to require updates to OS2-DASD.dmd to work.
Speak up.
It's going to require updates to OS2-DASD.dmd for large floppy above 2 gig to work.
The FAT16 works because it's in the kernel. So the kernel can load it, and the OS2 DASD, which I wasn't aware of, that has the 16, the 2 gig
That
limit.
no, it's all OS2-DASD because the kernel really doesn't much.
Well, the FAT16 support is in the kernel.
Yeah, I know, but that's not really why the large floppy doesn't work.
All right, I'm trying to go off of memory what I was told at one point by.
Yeah, no, you're correct. That's where the code is.
But I was told that I can't remember who it was saying that the FAT32 is going to also require some changes in order for it to be able to work,
Right.
even if the DASD problem issue wasn't there.
Yeah, probably just a match. It'll require similar, because, yeah, because
So-
the API will probably have to change, because I think it's the field riffs that's the problem, as much as anything else.
But it can be done. I don't know what exactly it would take, but it could be done.
The developer.
So that's the answer to your
Like
question.
everything.
Here's why you have virtual
I don't
PCs.
think there's any.
Well, virtual PC doesn't help you. The reason virtual PC doesn't help you is virtual PC does not pass through the USB. So like if you're on Windows and you're running virtual PC, you have the
I'll be
option.
on OS 2
I understand.
running virtual.
I understand.
Okay.
What I'm saying is if you are on Windows with virtual PC and you tell it, you have the option then of saying pass USB to the guest. On OS 2, we don't have that. On OS 2, there's no, you can use a USB drive, for instance, but OS 2 has to be able to read it.
Oh, okay.
And you have to then share the drive through the drive share, not sharing the USB. So if we had the ability to share, if we had the ability to pass USB through, yes, that would be marvelous.
So I may be able to read my thumb drive through virtual PC, but because it's not listed as a large floppy, my MP3 player won't work.
Yes, if you can read it through OS 2, your virtual PC will be able to access it, and so that may be good for being able to read files, but you don't need it for doing anything special because you already have that capability. If you're needing something special, you're out of luck. It's not nothing added here with virtual PCs. Now you may want to use iTunes within virtual PC or something. I don't know. Something whatever. It could be something like that. That as long as it can access the drive lever, then you may want some special. You like some tool that's able to work within the virtual PC, but you gain nothing special in advantage of hardware-wise or those type of things. Now, what I primarily use this for, the AvXCat here, I primarily use it for audio. I don't do a whole lot of video stuff, but it does have the video capabilities. We'll look at it a little bit here. But one of the things is if you go into the help, AvXCat generalities there, and Remy Doden's French, so some of his English sometimes is you can tell that. But it's he's got some really good stuff here. But it just gives you some very basic things here. Tells you that it's recommended to set all tool paths under parameters, and gives you some just very basic, simple, getting started stuff to make sure that the application's ready to go. But there's also the AvXCat docs, and it's got a little bit thing here on video analysis, which the video analysis is basically he's talking about, and I've never done this here at all. In fact, I'd forgotten about it until I was looking at this again, getting ready to come up here. It just says AvXCat has features that make it highly usable for content analysis. It says a qualitative research method of video. I don't entirely know what that's meaning, but if somebody does video stuff, they're going to have a lot better idea of what that's talking about. So, but it does. But basically, what it tells me is that it's got some very, some powerful feature in that. The primary one here, though, is the AvXCat PDF. That's one thing I need to look at and see if I can maybe do some INF stuff, because I really don't like PDF for help files. But the help files here are very good. It's 27 pages of help file here, going through it. I mean, you've got your table of contents. What you can see under the table of contents there is, it's quite a bit of stuff going into a PDF for help files. In the day and age where we have stuff going out that has no help files at all, this is really, really amazing. The help files on this.
Is the primary purpose for this to take an audio file, like an MP3, not necessarily music, but something, and pull pieces of it out and then join them together and
No, that's not its primary purpose. I asked for the join to be added because I had a particular need for it to be able to be joined. The joining thing is just one of those things that got added to it. Its primary thing initially was just because people needed to go from maybe MP3 to OGG or whatever. I mean, just very simple things that FFmpeg will do it for you, but you got to, if you look at the strings, and this thing will actually show you the strings. I mean, it gives you the string that you got to type in there like this, and that's not so much the problem. It's remembering that string that's this long to type in.
For knowing where to look in the help, to go
Yeah.
and find what you want when you don't really understand the term.
Yeah, if you do FFmpeg -- help, I mean, just in pages just start scrolling.
Yeah, I had a bunch of music files, which I wanted to put on a music player, and I wanted to equalize the volume across the entire set of files.
This is your tool.
This is your tool.
One click. But, you know, you had to select the directory, which
Yeah.
took half an hour.
So where do we get this?
Where do you get it?
Yes, well, no, it goes from the root of the drive. It's like data drive. It has, you know, hundreds of gig, and it took half an hour for it to come up with the directory list. But once I had it, I
It
got
also
that
has
and
its
equalized it.
homepage, where you can get to its homepage here. And it's got a, I must have something on this out.
Another question, you're talking about converting MIDI files. You'd have to have a working MIDI setup
No,
to start with,
no,
wouldn't you?
no. That's why this is so powerful. Now, if you,
That must have a virtual MIDI.
it's got the ability, it's not playing the MIDI, it's just able to go in and, no.
Well, internally, it's
There
got
is.
to be able.
You are right. No,
It
no,
has
no,
to
no,
have
no.
samples that it
No,
works
no,
from.
no, you're right, there is,
Yeah.
okay, this is something I had forgotten about because I'm working with an existing setup that's been here for so long.
Yeah.
I actually had to, because this is another request I had put in, actually, now that you're jogging my memory. I wanted to be able to convert MIDI files. So I get a hold of,
Patches.
I get a hold of him and say, I want to be able to convert MIDI files. Well, how do you convert MIDI files? To MIDI. So it wraps to MIDI as well. That's why it's able to, so you have to have, and we would have seen this when we get into some of this other, we would have, oh yeah, I forgot this. But we'll see that in a second here is when we get into seeing the locations of files. You have to go intercept your location. Some of the things you can set locations for, some of the things have to be in the same directory as the AvXCat. Now, I think the ones that have to be in the AvXCat is because he just got tired, I think, of trying to set the thing up so that you can go tell it where to get, go look for this stuff. Because it's starting to get kind of a long
It
list.
doesn't like to do configuration files.
So let's see if this thing. I remember 99% of this URL, but let's see if it'll pop it up. No? Okay.
Basically, you're not
Let me-
connected.
I got it. Remy Jordan, Levillage, Levillage.
That's easy for you to say.
.org.
Pretty.
You got it. I think.
Might want to make this.
All right, if I went out to, and when AvXCat, but I don't find it.
You can do a search for it. You can
You
Google.
can
You can Google
you search, use Google for AvXCat, right up.
DODIN.
Yeah,
AvXCat, DODIN.
So, yeah, I still probably can't read that. Remy
And
Jordan.
I said, do you have any idea how much it costs?
It's free.
Andy,
Yes.
will it capture mine in?
There are yet, I don't think so directly, but I'm not 100% certain on that. But there's probably, if it doesn't now, if you get a hold of it, I'm sure there's a way of causing it to. Probably. I don't know, but I suspect you can probably come up with a way to do so. Something out there, as long as there's a tool out there that can do it, and it can pipe it back out. This is just this is actually I don't remember which Rex he's using.
Yeah, I don't recognize them either. I thought VX at first, but it
Yeah,
doesn't quite look like VX Rex.
So it's calling existing programs and
Yeah.
putting them into.
Oh,
See,
it's
Dave
like
said
VR
it's like
dialogue,
VR.
actually.
All right, here's, let me just go back on this because that's I was mentioning earlier. It gives the audio video extended conversion and authoring tools, its name. It's the name of AvXCat, which we were talking about earlier, which was based on the older CE2 MP3. And this is where it's got the names for based from OS2 World. The idea having worked on by original idea was Cyber. I'm not sure what his real name is, but on OS2 World it goes by Cyber. Some of the code was, the original code, CE2 MP3, was from Robert Ilm and Jeff. Came up with some of the original code. And then Remy Doden had taken that code and went from there. But I'm not certain which tool he's using. It probably says in one of these docs, because it probably says that some files needed VR object.
Yeah,
Actually,
when my narrows off, it looks like a VXRX program.
and I think that's
Yeah.
probably it.
Yeah.
The buttons are too good for DR Dialogue.
Oh.
DR
yeah,
Dialogue
okay.
has funny looking buttons a lot of times.
Yeah.
You sort of have to clone yourself sometimes.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not certain which one he's using, but it's one of the Rex Zooey builders. I'm not sure which one. I probably knew it one time, but I don't remember now. But it looks really better than most of the GUI Rex programs do. I mean, it's really pretty good. But so before I forget here, because I'll end up doing so, the parameters I was talking about. If you go in here, you have to tell it where FFmpeg is at, because that's its core application. ID3 V2 is, I think it may still be required now, but that one really is needed for ID3 tags, being written to write the ID3 tags. Full path to timidity has to be in there. So you have to kind of have timidity set up a little bit for having its patch files and stuff. So you just have to have the setup, but you don't have to remember all these different strings and everything else. Aug info, again, I think that's for the similar to the ID3 tags on MP3. Priority is not required, but the priority from the FM2 utils so that you can set the priority at like I've got mine set to 1.3 so that when I'm doing these things I can be doing other stuff and it's not killing my processors on me where I can't do anything else. Actually, that's no longer required for that functionality because there was a thread somewhere else that had come up where somebody was asking about changing the priorities and they were using a Rex, so I suggested to them that, well, why don't you just use the Rex call to offset priority, and Remy was part of that discussion, so after he saw that, he added that to here, so it will set the priority now without priority. I haven't really tested it to see which one, if there's any difference. I can't imagine a difference, really, but it no longer requires priority to be able to set the priority. Then CDDA2 wave, I've never actually done anything that needed that, but that's pulling track information off of the CD. So you can pull CD stuff and go to MP3, for instance, and it'll pull the track info of that. So, I mean, like I said, it's got all kinds of useful stuff. You can copy AUG information, so if you're going from MP3 to AUG or vice versa, it'll pull that information, the metadata, across to pull, if you have the artist or the titles or whatever, it pulls all that information from one to the other, going to whatever it supports. It'll pull across the same stuff. Wave, I don't guess really supports anything, so that I know of. So you probably lose stuff if you go to it. But anything that has these metadata, it'll save that.
CDT to a wave is a track record.
Yeah. You can tell whether or not to add the ID3 tags. If you do, you say if you want to add V1, version 1 stuff, version 2 stuff, or both. That becomes, I've seen issues with that where if you didn't have that set right, my MP3 player, if I didn't have one or the other set, it might not pick it up. So you may or may not care which one you're adding, but you know, sometimes that is an issue. Whether or not to use the priority. Cumulative logs, I really don't use that one, but that way this thing keeps a log of everything it's doing. So if it keeps a log of what FFmpeg comes back with, what the program itself comes back with. So if you have any problems or something's not expected, not coming back to expected, it's got really good logs to be able to go through there and check it. And if you're looking at it over time, you can't set the cumulative, but they really start getting long just without the cumulative. So I don't recommend that one unless you really need it. And the CDDA2 wave, if you want to add the track numbers. I don't know exactly. Like I said, I haven't played with that one, so I'm not sure exactly what that one does.
It adds the track numbers to the titles of the files.
Is that what it's doing? And it's files, okay. But those are. Then there's also, I think over here is where we want to go. Realizations. And some of this web page here is in French, so you have to kind of figure out, you can't really see it here, but I guess I should use, we got the handy little pointers there. Right here it says mes resolution, I can't see in French. Anyhow, realizations, things that come to realization. He's the guy who's done the Clam AV GUI, for instance. And he wrote, that's some of the thing he wrote, but then AvXCat. CDRW Select is another one he's written. It can either use RSJ or the CD record. Yeah, CDR record. CD recorder. And it'll use either one of them. He originally wrote it for RSJ and then adapted it also to be able to use the CD recorder, which I think now is its primary. His primary at least on it, so that it will work with RSJ. But the AvXCat, you click on it, comes over to here, and it gives you, actually gives you some information here as well. And it goes through and it tells you the things that are the applications that are required to go with it. Okay, programs that are required. ECS version 2 suggested low. That's not that's not actually required, but that's the number one here. Warp-in for the installation. FFmpeg is required. That's like I said, that's what the bulk of things are done with. Priority is strongly suggested. Like I said, that one's probably not as required now because of the DOS set priority can handle that. OGinfo, OGDLL, Vorbis.dll from the package has got the link for the OG support. ID3 V2, you need the one that is 0.1.12 or newer. That's why the newest right now. I built the previous one had, I can't remember, some problem that it wouldn't actually work with the ID3 tags correctly. It wouldn't write them if I remember correctly. Somehow remember right.
You can get those required files on Hobbs or something?
Most of this stuff's on, but all this stuff's got links on it right here. But that one's up on Hobbs, if I remember. Yeah, I put it up on Hobbs because when I found out it wasn't working, if there was a newer version, I went out there and built it, and it was working, so we put it up there. RxDLL.
Probably want to wind up in about 5 minutes.
Okay. And then There's some other DLLs that are actually included in the WPI itself, so it installs it, just some of the stuff in there. What it doesn't mention here is the committee. It's not required, so it's not under the required stuff, but to work with MIDI files, you have to have committee. This, the view we're looking at now is audio. If you go under view and change it to video, it changes it a little bit. And now we have options over here that make sense for video. You got AUX5, actually we do have HTML support, so HTML5 support, so we could take files, convert them from, it'll pull a file, pull unencrypted data files, so your DVD files. You can take unencrypted DVDs and convert them to HTML5, which is what that's the Firefox and the newer Firefox and CMonkeys can handle natively for its video. So you can go in there and convert these. You can convert them to Flash as well, but as someone pointed out, that's kind of a sore spot for some. MP4, you can convert it to MP4. AVI, now it's the AVI, I don't know what the difference, it's not the Intel AVI like our old Ultimotion stuff. I don't think it'll work with the old Ultimotion stuff at all. MPEG 2, WMV files, like I said, Flash, Pocket PC, PDA, iPod. I don't know what some of this stuff is even. It's mentioned. But it's got all the stuff that FFmpeg can take it to. So, like I said, I don't even know what some of those things are. They're not ones I deal with. Up here, going back to the video, to the audio, this volume here, because I should mention that, I told you it has MP3 gain. You have to put it under volume, you put it on auto to use the MP3 gain. It's got all, FFmpeg has some functions like from minus 256 to a positive 300. I have no idea what any of those numbers mean. I think that it's possible it'll do more or less what I'm wanting to do, I want the MP3 gain to do, but I have no idea what they're doing. And when I was setting them, I was getting even I was putting whatever number in there because I had no idea what the numbers were for, and I tried different ones. I still was hearing a lot of variance in the volume where things, and I can barely hear it, and all of a sudden I get blown out. So I haven't played with it a whole lot. So I hadn't had a lot of experience hearing if the MP3 gain will do what I'm hoping it's going to do, but because that's relatively new addition in the last version or two, and I'd already done almost all my conversions by that time that I was after. MP3 gain actually is not linked off of here, and probably have to do a search on that. Paul Radcliffe, I believe, has a version of it on his site. Don't know if it's on Hobbs or not. But Paul Radcliffe, I know, has it on his site.
Just if you find a bug, don't tell Paul.
Actually,
Tell him you don't
tell him
want
it
to.
has a bug.
Unless you really want to get beaten up.
To be fair, his stuff works pretty well.
Which is good enough for him to find a bug.
Yeah.
It's so unbelievable.
Yeah.
Is there any questions?
That's right.
Things we need to wrap it up to be able to get
Yeah,
out.
in order to go.
You got any questions?
Thanks,